Hi everyone, and welcome to the first day of the 10-day course of web development. So learning web development is the same thing as learning coding. And in coding, there are many different types of languages, and web development is made up of three languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So first, we can start with setting up our platform. And we can just open a new tab here and type in Replit. So this will be our coding platform. And if you don't already have an account, you can create one just by pressing sign up here. But if you already do, then we can get started. I recommend pausing the video and creating an account on Replit so you can follow along with the code. So we can press create and press HTML, CSS, and JS. So JS just stands for JavaScript. And these are the three languages we're going to be using for web development. And you can name your project here. I'll just call it web dev. And you can press create REPL and we can get started with the coding. So you can, if you run the project, if you click on the green button at the top, you should see hello world, and you'll see this a lot in coding. Whenever you see some examples or anything, there's always going to be hello world. It's pretty common. And we're going to get started with the first language, and that's HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So HTML is just all the objects of coding, like all the paragraphs, all the text. So we can look at this example called Purple Dancing Dino. And this sentence just represents the three languages of coding. So purple just means it's a color, it's the design of something, it's the styling. So purple stands for CSS. So CSS takes care of all the design and all the styling, how your website looks like, what colors it is, so that's purple. And then now we have dancing. Dancing is JavaScript, so that's JS. And dancing is just what action your website does. Like it includes the actions of your buttons. It can make your website do things. So in this case, it's the action. And the dino is the HTML. So it's basically the seed of coding, the root of coding. It's the actual object. So without the object, you can't do anything with it. If you don't have a dino, you just have purple dancing, and that doesn't really do anything. So just purple dancing dino, and dino is HTML. So all the object and text. So purple, so CSS introduces all the styling, such as color, the size of things, and dancing is the action of your website. So this is JavaScript. And Dino is HTML, so it's the root of everything, and it's the objects that get started with it. So now let's get started with HTML. So remember, HTML is where everything starts. So it's the text, the paragraphs, and we call these elements. And let's say you want to write a paragraph, we would use tags. And we would use a paragraph tag. So what a tag is a tag consists of a start tag and a closing tag. So a start tag is over here. You just put two angle brackets, and then you put the type in here. So in this case, the type is the paragraph. And for every beginning tag, there has to be a closing tag. So you just do the same thing, except you have a slash before the type name. So over here, we're creating a paragraph. And then we can just put things inside the paragraph. And we can run the code to see what we get. And then it shows up on the screen right here. But let's say we wanted a header. We would just do the same thing with the paragraph, but just change the type. So you can start with the starting angle bracket, type in H1, which stands for header 1, and then And then Replit is good because it'll automatically give you the end tag once you finish the starting tag. So this one. And now you have a start tag and the end tag. And inside you can type text. So I'm gonna write this is a header. And you can see it shows up a lot bigger and it's a header 1. And there's actually a lot of many different headers. So you can actually do header 2, H2. And this is header 2. And this is a lot smaller. So it actually goes all the way up to header 6, I think. And yeah, that's header 6 right there. So these are called tags. They have a start tag and then the text in between. And then you have an ending tag, which is the same thing as a start tag, except with a slash. Now, let's say you wanted this text to be bolded. You could go inside this paragraph tag, and then you could put an inner tag inside the paragraph tag. So where you see the text, you could encircle that with a bolded tag. And the bolded tag is the same thing as a paragraph tag, like every other tag, except the type is different. So in this case, we just put B instead of P. So B just makes the text bolded. You can see now that this is bolded. And you can also italicize it. So I'm going to copy this code on the top and change it from B to I. So that's going to italicize it. And there's a lot of different commands with HTML, but this is just the basics. And make sure to type all this inside the body. So you can see the body also has a tag, a start tag, and the end tag. And everything, all the tags you put should be inside the body. And when you click on the tag, the starting tag, it should give you the end tag. So now so far we have bolded text, italicized text, and headers. Now let's go with divs. So divs are basically sections of elements. We can just write div, and then it'll give you the close tag. And the good thing about this is that it's kind of like its own separate body. We can put lots of text inside here, lots of tags, and then it'll be its own separate div. And right now it may not seem so useful because it'll still look the same without these divs. But once we get into IDs and classes and CSS, you'll start seeing more of the use of this. So now we have bolded, italicized, and a div. And let's say you also wanted a nav bar at the top of your website. We can put nav. So nav is kind of the same thing as a div, except it's just labeled differently. It's called nav. So this way you can keep your code more organized. You know which one is a nav bar, you know which one is just a separate section. And this is nav bar. Yeah, so these are the basics of HTML. And now we can get into IDs and classes. Thing we did, we have tags. There's a start tag enclosed with 2 angle brackets, and there's a type inside. So it just says what type of text you want. This is a nav. And there's a closing tag, the same thing as their start tag, except there's a slash. And then there's text in between, what you want to show on the page. There's a nav bar, there's a header, it goes up to header 6. And there's a paragraph if you just want normal text. And you can bold it. You can bold the text with the B tag. You can italicize the text. And you can have div, which gives you separate sections. Now, let's say you want to user input. Let's say you wanted to make a form, you wanted a username, and you wanted a password. So what you would do here is you would type in a normal, just like a normal tag, you would start with the starting tag, except this time the type would be called input. And then Instead of putting things between the start tag and the end tag, we put things inside the start tag. So over here, right beside input, and then input, you can say the type of input. So there's many different types of inputs. We can start with text. And now you can see there's a text input right here where the user can actually add things in. And that's not the only type of input. There's also a color input. I don't see it used very often in websites, but it's here if you need it. You can choose which color it is. And there's a built-in color picker right here. I also try to use this to figure out what the real color of the color changing dress was, but it was really just in between gold and blue, so I didn't really know. And there's also a radio input. Radio is basically means a multiple choice. So you can see here, I'm just changing the type to radio. Yeah, and now you can kind of check it right here. Although right now we only have one choice, so that's only one radio button. Let's say you wanted 3 choices. You can just copy and paste the code. And now you have 3 radio buttons. Now that's 3 choices right here. So these are inputs, and the default for input is text. So let's say you didn't put the type, you just didn't specify the type. I deleted the type. And now the first one should still stay as a text input because the default, if you don't specify anything, is a text input. So that's the end of the day 1 course. And the next day we're going to learn more about HTML elements and buttons and links, and maybe some CSS too.